All right, how are you guys doing today? We are here strictly to talk about harm reduction. This conversation came to my mind because working in the addictions world and coming across people who are using alternative methods of substances has raised high level of questions on whether harm reduction is good or harm reduction is bad. I think what people need to understand about harm reduction itself is that it's more than just safe supply of needles and safe supply of equipment to use for drugs. What my understanding and what I want to share with the world is that harm reduction has gotten huge negative review, and unfortunately the review of harm reduction is from people who don't quite understand why harm reduction is so. I think it's fair for us to try to understand why harm reduction is an option, and why it's important for the society to want to use to appreciate the importance of harm reduction. I had put out a poll on Reddit, and we asked whether places like safe injection sites are good or not. And this one lady actually messaged back and said, if it wasn't for a place like harm reduction site, such as a safe injection site, her daughter would have actually maybe passed away. Why I say that is because people who are using safe injection sites, they are going into a place where they are given clean supply of needles. This alone is one of the things that ticks off a lot of people. Why should we give an addict safe supply of needles? Well, the reason is that the reason is pretty simple. It is so that they do not reuse needles. If you know anything about sharing needles, then you know you're passing diseases to each other. And this is something that the community in mental health and substance use is trying to get away from. We want to allow anyone who is addicted to drugs to still have hope of not catching diseases, so that they end up dying from so-called natural diseases. There are diseases like let's say HIV. There is Hep C that is passed along to each other in the neighborhood of people who are using addiction, or who are in addiction. But by providing these people with a safe supply of needles, it means that we are treating them like human beings. We are giving them hope in the future. If our community can explain and show people that we have hope for anyone to make it out of addiction, this is important for the person in addiction to feel cared for and loved because then, well, they feel like they're being treated like a human being. Unfortunately, though, the way the society reacts to the idea of harm reduction is because, well, it is so that let them use the drugs and let them use the bad needles, or they chose this life. And that kind of mentality is, it's unhealthy if we have any hope of people actually fighting addiction. Someone told me that people in addiction, they have lost all hope in life. So by coming together as a unity to say, we want you to do well, although you're stuck and are struggling with addiction, we want to give you hope so that when you do make it, we are here for you. Those people are more likely at a faster rate to get well and conquer addiction as a whole. So it is my hope and my it is my hope that we can all appreciate the importance of harm reduction, especially the use of safe supplies like clean needles, giving them, you know, I was talking today to someone and I told them, if I today if I started eating sugar and sugar and sugar, and then I become diabetic, would it be a case of you saying you cannot use a clean insulin, so we want you to use a dirty insulin? You wouldn't, just because you can't hold me against my addiction of sugar. You would still have the decency to say, whatever we can do for this person, let it be done so that they can heal from this disease. And that's exactly what we are trying to do with the people that are addicted to drugs. I hope people can come to an understanding of the importance of safe supplies. Another thing that is heavily debated in the community of substance use is the use of substances like methadone. Methadone itself, it's opiate replacement, right? So if someone is using heroin and they're stuck in the heroin addiction, what the government and the health system do is they offer them something that is a replacement of that heroin, and they give them methadone, which is also an opiate. But the question now becomes, and they just getting high off the government supply? The answer is probably yes. But if they were going to get high anyway, why do you care which drugs they're now using? What I'm trying to say is, shouldn't we focus on something more important? Number one, their recovery. And number two, them having less chances of using drugs that are likely to cause overdose. I say this because people who are using street drugs like heroin and fentanyl, they are dying from overdoses because heroin is laced with fentanyl, and there's not really one way to tell. Some people are looking for the fentanyl because it's stronger, so it gives them that stronger high, right? I think if my loved one is in addiction, I would choose that they opt for methadone because I know it's safe and I know that it is Number one, it doesn't have anything laced with it. And remember too, people who are on medication like methadone, it's free, right? They're not buying it for extra money. So for that person who is in addiction and they're homeless, perhaps being on methadone allows them to save money. And when they are well, they are possibly given the opportunity to finally get a basement or a room to rent or an apartment. But harm reduction through methadone is most important from my perspective because it has less chances of that substance being laced with anything else that is more lethal. I hope you can understand that perspective alone. Harm reduction. Another part is that there's something that they call, well, OAT program. The OAT is OAT, opiate antagonist, or opiate agonist treatment. So an opiate agonist is, well, number one, methadone, or Oracadian, other medications like that. However, there's now something they call IOT. That's an injectable opiate agonist treatment. This is in the form of something like hydromorphine. So hydromorphine is injected, and when you take this, we hope, or the government hopes, that you no longer need to go and take your street heroin. Does it guarantee? No, it doesn't guarantee that they won't use street heroin, but at least it allows the government to say they've done their best on someone who is addicted to something like heroin. Because a person who's addicted to heroin, to be honest, the absolute truth is that they'll be using it for a while. That's what addiction is. Addiction means that you're struggling to cope with it. So while you're struggling to cope with it and you're struggling to come out of the addiction itself, it is the government's hope that they save your life through supplying you an alternative to what you're currently using, giving you the same effects, but most importantly, ensuring that your life is safe. It's a very fine line to draw, and there's no perfect way to draw that line. But if something is being done with the goal to save a person's life, I personally am for it. I'm personally am for it, and I'm hoping that the society at large can go behind it. Not necessarily to say that we don't care about people in addiction or we don't care about their recovery, but rather with the perspective that we are trying to avoid the overdoses. This is the big reason why some people stand behind programs like OAT, opiate agonist treatment. You can't have coffee with Kuda without drinking the coffee. So, as we continue to talk about harm reduction, another area that I wanted to get into is when I was talking to someone who was using self-injection sites, they told me that they found it very important that they were being treated with love and care when they walk into a self-injection site. That notion alone, to be greeted and to be appreciated by other people, was important for that individual because they felt like a human being finally. Whenever they are in the street, whenever they are Whenever they're in the street, they're being called junkies, they're being called addicts. Everyone walks away from them. People almost nearly run away from them. This is because the society at large has considered anyone in addiction to be dangerous and not worth to talk to. However, when they walk into a safe injection site, they are greeted by shelter workers, they're greeted by nurses. And this individual said to me, when they said, "Hey, good afternoon, good morning, how are you?" that felt very good to that person because the society at large do not even greet them. So they actually felt loved and cared for by people in a safe injection site. So now, instead of this person choosing to go and use drugs alone, where they can overdose and they have no one to save their life, safe injection site became that spot where their lives were safe. And actually, to be fair with you, this person's life was saved numerous times through safe injection site. So number one, not only do they feel like they are loved and cared for, they also get their life saved by going to a place like that. So harm reduction is something that we need to understand a little bit, and we need to be more compassionate when we are talking about people in addiction and ways that can save their lives. I hope and I think I am I am hopeful that the more people talk about harm reduction, the more people openly appreciate the lives that are being saved, the more we can actually remove the stigma that is associated with drug addiction. And most importantly, which drug that I think of is heroin and fentanyl. That's not to say we should be open to the idea of using it. I'm just saying for those people who are unfortunate to be stuck in the addiction, they still need us to come forward and say, we understand. We want you to be safe. So here we are to support you. First, let's save your life. Let's make sure your life is not at risk. That is the defining or the definition of harm reduction. And most people don't seem, or maybe most people don't have a true understanding of it, and all they see is individuals being given drugs, individuals being spoiled, really. Is it spoiling them? Maybe it is, I don't know. But is it saving lives? Most importantly, I think it is. So I'll leave that one for you guys to think about. I'll leave that one for you guys to talk about. I don't really like to do live streams a lot, but since it's Easter and I'm not really filming anything today, I just thought I'd come on here, talk to you guys about harm reduction, and hopefully this can change someone's perspective on maybe just appreciating the difference that is being made. One guy that I spoke to also, he was very conservative. He's told me, he said, I used to hate the idea of people being so spoiled and being given these needles. But until his life got saved by people in a safe injection site, he then started to appreciate, and he actually started to work in that program because he realized that, well, you know what, lives are being saved. I think it's fair to say that I can understand why people don't like safe injection sites, but if you ever work in that industry, or if you ever experience someone, your loved one, in that world of addiction, you may appreciate that. Let's save their lives just a little bit longer with the hope that they can actually recover. And that's the key, right? We gotta keep hope so that they can remain hopeful. If we lose the hope, they lose their hope, because they're already in addiction because they didn't have any hope of life. They were abused, they were traumatized, they faced life challenging difficulties that has left them without a single hope. So if we say that's perfectly fine, you go and do you, we are just damaging any little hope that they may have. But if you see the number of people who are working in the addiction world, who are working giving back, it's mostly people who were once addicted. And I think without them, the healthcare system would suck. Without their level of compassion, without their level of understanding, we would suck at our services as healthcare providers. So it's important that we support them, we save their lives so that they can come and help someone else who is in addiction right now. That's my talk on harm reduction. It is my pleasure to be joining with you. Like I said, I'm barely doing lives, but being Easter weekend, we're not filming anything. I thought I would come and talk about something that is so important, and something that is not touched on a lot. Or at least I haven't touched on it on this project so far. Maybe in the future I will. I do want to encourage you guys to watch a movie called 4 Good Days. This movie is coming out April 30th. The trailer is out right now. Check it out, 4 Good Days. It has Mila Kunis and Glenn Close. The movie basically talks about how the daughter is addicted to heroin, and how the mother is just trying to support her as much as possible while she's facing this tough battle. It's a very, very powerful movie from what I can tell so far, and the trailer looks really good. I'm going to do a video on that trailer alone, to break it down, just to explain my thoughts on whether the trailer is accurate or not. Because there's a lot of Hollywood movies, right, that makes everything Hollywood rather than just going to be realistic about life itself. So I definitely do break down that trailer. I can't wait to show you guys. But like I said, today I wanted to just touch on harm reduction, and one day I'll come back more prepared with more information. I think there's a lot more to talk about in regards to harm reduction, what good it does for your own community, more than you may assume. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys watched today's video by Jason. We interviewed Jason. She's a person who fought. Did she fight? She fought for a long time and almost gave up. She decided to kill herself because addiction was becoming that heavy for her. And while she was about to go for it, she decided to do it through actually heroin. She was going to inject an overdose. But funny enough, as she was about to inject this heroin, the place she was in got robbed in a way. So people broke in with guns, and they held gun to her head. And she tells me that the first thought that came to her head was, I don't want to die. But 2 minutes before, she was just about to inject heroin and kill herself. She's currently actually working in a shelter supporting individuals who are suffering from drug addiction. And that's my point about helping people like that. You just never know what they can do for the community when they come back and they have their life together. She's a coordinator right now of a shelter, of a tenancy. And these discussions that she brings to the table are so powerful. She talks about being sexually abused when she was young and how that leads to it was leading to eating disorders, something that in mental health you may not quite understand, but eating disorders are a result of your abuse in the past, the anxiety levels that you faced. It's an important learning experience talking to Jason. So please check it out and let me know what you think. In the meantime, I am heading out. Peace.